The Royal Guard of the Galactic Council stood perfectly still outside the massive crystal doors of the High Chamber. For 300 years, humans had been part of the space community, but older alien species still viewed them with mixed feelings. Lance Sergeant Kevin Miller represented humans in the elite guard group, a position he earned through hard work, physical strength, and mental toughness. His black and silver ceremonial armor shined under the three suns of Nexus Prime, the neutral planet where members from 17 different intelligent species gathered to govern space affairs. His posture was perfect, back straight, chin up, eyes forward, exactly as the 1,000-year tradition demanded. 8-year-old Lily Collins watched him from her wheelchair with wonder in her eyes. Her father, Ambassador Patrick Collins, had brought her along for this diplomatic meeting, her first journey beyond Earth's solar system. The special devices in her chair helped her handle Nexus Prime's stronger gravity, but nothing could help with the overwhelming feeling she had seeing the beautiful buildings and diverse alien species moving through the Council Plaza. But it was the human guard that interested her most. "Daddy, he's from Earth, just like us," Lily whispered excitedly, pulling at her father's sleeve. Ambassador Collins smiled down at his daughter. "Yes, sweetheart. Lance Sergeant Miller is part of the Royal Guard. They protect the Council and keep the meetings proper. It's one of the highest honors in the galaxy." Lily studied the Guard with growing admiration. She had read about the Royal Guard in her school lessons, how they were chosen from the best warriors of each species, how they trained for years to achieve perfect discipline, how they stayed completely still and silent during their 12-hour shifts. "Can I go closer?" she asked. Her father checked his watch. "We have a few minutes before the meeting begins. Just remember, honey, Royal Guards never talk to visitors while on duty. It's their most important tradition. Complete focus on their job." Lily nodded seriously and guided her wheelchair across the shiny floor toward the tall guard. The brain connection of her chair responded to her thoughts, bringing her to a respectful distance from Lance Sergeant Miller. She looked up at him, taking in the details of his armor, the ceremonial gun held against his shoulder, the shining helmet that covered part of his face. Without thinking too much, Lily raised her small hand in a salute she had practiced after learning about military customs in school. The Royal Guard remained still, as the rules required. But something changed in his eyes, a softening, a recognition of the little girl's gesture. And then, breaking 3 centuries of human participation in the strictest tradition in the galaxy, Lance Sergeant Kevin Miller lowered his gaze to meet Lily's and returned her salute. People gasped across the plaza. Several alien officials stopped walking mid-step. The second human guard stationed across the entrance visibly stiffened. Lily smiled with joy, not knowing about the huge break in rules that had just happened. Ambassador Collins, who had been watching, from a distance felt his heart skip a beat. In his 5 years of diplomatic service at the Galactic Council, he had never seen a Royal Guard acknowledge a civilian. The tradition dated back thousands of years, long before humans had even discovered space travel. A tall, insect-like alien in formal robes approached quickly, its compound eyes fixed on Miller with clear disapproval. "Ambassador Collins," it said in the formal tones of Council common speech, "your offspring has caused a serious breach of protocol." "Counselor Zeth Vanner," Collins began carefully, "I assure you my daughter meant no disrespect. She's only 8 and this is her first visit to Nexus Prime." "It is not the child's action that concerns us," replied the counselor, mandibles clicking rapidly. "It is the guard's response. No Royal Guard has broken neutrality in 5,000 cycles." By now, Lily had wheeled herself back to her father's side, looking confused. "Did I do something wrong, Daddy?" Collins placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong." Other council members were gathering now, some speaking quickly into communication devices, others watching Miller with expressions ranging from shock to curiosity. The human guard had returned to his proper stance, eyes forward, completely still, as if nothing had happened. "There will need to be an immediate disciplinary hearing," said Zeth Vanner. "The guard must be removed from duty. Ambassador Collins, your presence will be required as well." Collins nodded grimly. I understand, counselor. Though if I may say, there was no harm in a simple acknowledgement of a child. The insectoid alien's antennae twitched. No harm. Tradition is the foundation upon which galactic peace stands, Ambassador. Your species is still new to the Council. Perhaps you fail to understand the importance of such matters. Before Collins could respond, a melodic chime sounded throughout the plaza, signaling the beginning of the Council session. Zeth Vanner gave a formal bow. We will address this breach after the session concludes. Please ensure your offspring causes no further disruptions. As the counselor moved away, Lily looked up at her father with worried eyes. Is the guard going to be in trouble because of me? Collins sighed, kneeling beside her wheelchair. It's complicated, honey. The Royal Guards follow very strict rules, and one of those rules is that they don't interact with anyone while on duty. But he just returned my salute, Lily said, her young face troubled. On Earth, soldiers do that all the time. Yes, they do, Collins said gently. But here, things are different. The Royal Guard has traditions older than our entire civilization. Lily looked back at Lance Sergeant Miller, who stood motionless at his post, showing no sign of their brief interaction. I didn't want to cause problems. I know you didn't, her father assured her. Now we need to go inside for the meeting. Maybe it won't be as serious as Counselor Zeth Vanner thinks, but as they entered the Grand Council chamber, Collins noticed several high-ranking officials whispering and pointing subtly toward them. Something significant had happened, something that might have diplomatic consequences beyond a simple exchange between a guard and a child. What neither Collins nor Lily knew was that their small moment had already been captured on the Council's recording systems and was spreading rapidly through the secure communication channels used by officials from all 17 member species. By the time the formal session ended, every diplomatic mission on Nexus Prime would be discussing the human guard who broke 5,000 years of tradition for a little girl in a wheelchair. And deep in the ancient archives beneath the Council chambers, a long-forgotten protocol was about to resurface, one that would change everything about how the galaxy understood the role of the Royal Guard. 3 hours later, Lance Sergeant Kevin Miller stood in a small chamber off the main council hall. He had removed his helmet as required when facing senior officials, but he kept his perfect guard posture. His face showed no emotion, though inside, he felt worried about what would happen. This is completely unacceptable, an outrage against tradition. High Counselor Zeth Vanner's voice was loud in the private room, where 7 senior officials from different species sat in a half-circle facing Miller. The insect-like counselor's mandibles clicked rapidly, showing his anger. 3,000 years of unbroken rules, the counselor continued. No guard has ever noticed a civilian while on duty. Guard Captain Eleanor Wright, the human, commander of the Royal Guard Group, stood beside Miller. Her face was carefully blank despite the serious situation. Your human tradition on Earth covers only a few hundred years, said Counselor Dravix, a lizard-like diplomat with scales that changed colors with his mood. Perhaps you do not understand what it means to follow a custom for thousands of years. Miller stayed silent, as was proper when important council members were speaking. Ambassador Collins had been called to the meeting too. He stood uncomfortably, to the side, sometimes looking at Miller with a mixture of sympathy and concern. What do you have to say for yourself, Lance Sergeant? Asked the guard master, an ancient being whose skin glowed with barely hidden disapproval. I have no excuse, guard master, Miller replied formally. I acted against my training and tradition. I accept whatever punishment you think is right. The guard master's skin patterns shifted to a deeper blue. You understand this could mean you lose your position in the Royal Guard? No human would be allowed to join our ranks for at least 30 years if such a serious rule-breaking were to happen. Ambassador Collins stepped forward. If I may speak, honored counselors? After receiving a short nod from the senior members, he continued, while I understand how seriously the Royal Guard takes its traditions, I believe there might be some cultural context worth thinking about. My daughter Lily has faced physical challenges since birth. On Earth, there is a long-standing tradition in many of our military groups of giving special recognition to children, especially those with disabilities. The counselors looked at each other, their expressions hard for humans to read. Also, Collins added carefully. Lance Sergeant Miller's action, while against the rules, has created considerable interest among regular people on several council worlds. The recording has already spread widely. Recording? The guardmaster's skin flashed alarming patterns of orange and yellow. Collins nodded. The plaza is public space. Several visitors captured the moment and shared it. The response has been very positive among ordinary citizens. He turned on a small projector, showing a sample of public reactions from across the galaxy. Most touching thing I've seen from the council in decades. Perhaps humans understand something about honor. We've forgotten. My child asked why the guard noticed the small human. I struggled to explain why this was wrong. The councilors shifted uncomfortably as they took in this information. This does not change the fact that a sacred tradition was broken, said Seth Vanner, though his voice had lost some of its earlier anger. An older councilor who had been quiet until now leaned forward. Her species was one of the oldest in the council, with skin like polished stone and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Perhaps, she said slowly, we should consult the original texts of the Guard Charter before making our decision. The other councilors looked surprised at this suggestion. The Charter has not been referenced in detail for thousands of years, said Dravix. We all know the traditions, do we? Asked the elder councilor. Or do we know what the traditions have become? There is sometimes wisdom in returning to the source. After a brief discussion, the council agreed to delay their decision until the ancient documents had been examined. Miller was ordered to return to quarters until called for, while the archivists were summoned to search the oldest records. As Miller left the chamber, Ambassador Collins caught up with him in the corridor. I'm sorry about this, Lance Sergeant, Collins said quietly. Lily is upset that she got you in trouble. Miller's formal manner softened slightly. Please tell Miss Collins that she did nothing wrong, sir. The decision to return her salute was mine alone. May I ask why you did it? Collins asked. You must have known the consequences. Miller was quiet for a moment before answering. My sister has a daughter about your Lily's age. She uses mobility supports too. When I saw your daughter's salute, he paused. Some things just feel right, even when the rules say otherwise. Collins nodded thoughtfully. Well, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing, though I'm not sure the council will see it that way. With respect, sir, that doesn't matter much to me, Miller said. I knew what I was doing. As they parted ways, Miller heading to his quarters and Collins returning to his diplomatic suite where Lily waited anxiously, neither man knew that deep in the archive levels beneath the council tower, something remarkable was about to be discovered. The Council's chief archivist, a Teskelian named Vexilor, whose species had perfect memory and a deep respect for historical records, had been searching through the oldest sections of the archive. While most records were stored digitally, the most ancient texts were kept in their original physical form for ceremonial reasons. In a sealed container that had not been opened for over 1,000 years, Vexilor found the original Guard Charter, written in the flowing script of the founding species. As the archivist carefully unfolded the delicate document, a section near the end caught their attention. A section that had somehow been left out of all modern copies of the Charter. It was titled, in the ancient language of the First Council, the Mercy Clause. Vexilor's eyes widened as they read the forgotten words. Immediately they contacted the High Council. Honored councilors, I believe you need to see this right away. It changes everything about the situation with the human. Guard. Across the council complex in the Collins family's temporary quarters, Lily sat in her wheelchair by the window, looking out at the 3 setting suns of Nexus Prime. Will the guard lose his job because of me, Daddy? She asked quietly. Ambassador. Collins sat beside his daughter. I don't know, sweetheart. The Royal Guard takes their traditions very seriously. Lily frowned. But he was just being nice. Sometimes, Collins said carefully, being nice and following rules don't always match up, especially when those rules are thousands of years old. That's silly, Lily declared with the simple wisdom of a child. Rules should help people be good to each other, not stop them. Ambassador Collins smiled at his daughter's words, not knowing that far below them in the ancient archives, those same sentiments were about to echo across thousands of years. The next morning, Lance Sergeant Miller was surprised to receive a message summoning him not to the disciplinary chamber, but to the main council hall. This large room was normally used only for the most important galactic matters. Miller put on his full ceremonial armor, making sure every piece was perfect. Whatever punishment was coming, he would face it with dignity. When he arrived at the grand doors of the council hall, he noticed something unusual. Instead of the normal guards, the entrance was flanked by the guardmaster himself and Captain Wright. They nodded to him with expressions Miller couldn't read. "Lance Sergeant," said the guardmaster, his luminescent skin now a calm blue-green. "The full council awaits you." Miller swallowed hard but kept his face neutral. A hearing before the full council of all 17 species was extremely rare. This was far more serious than he had expected. As the massive doors swung open, Miller marched forward with precise steps, his training taking over despite his worry. The hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. To his surprise, Ambassador Collins and Lily were also present, seated in a special area near the front. Lily waved excitedly when she saw him, and Miller had to force himself not to react. High Chancellor Vorn, the eldest of the council leaders, called the session to order. The ancient being's voice carried easily through the vast chamber. "We have gathered today to address what began as a disciplinary matter, but has become something requiring deeper consideration," the Chancellor began. Lance Sergeant Miller of Earth's Royal Guard broke our most sacred tradition by acknowledging a child. At first, this was seen as a serious violation of protocol. Miller stood at perfect attention, his face showing nothing despite his inner tension. "However," continued the Chancellor, "this incident has led us to examine historical records of Guard traditions dating back to when the Council was first formed. A series of ancient documents appeared as holograms above the chamber floor. Our archivists have found something remarkable," the Chancellor said. "The original Guard rules from 6,000 years ago contained a provision that has been forgotten in our current practices, what was called the Mercy Clause." Miller blinked in surprise but maintained his composure. Ambassador Collins leaned forward, clearly interested. This clause specifically allowed guards to briefly acknowledge 3 types of civilians: children with physical challenges, those in immediate emotional distress, and the seriously ill. The Chancellor's many-faceted eyes seemed to show something like wonder. It was considered not a break of duty but a support of the very values the guards were meant to protect. Murmurs spread through the chamber as representatives took in this revelation. Somehow, over thousands of years of following tradition, the purpose behind the tradition became lost. The Chancellor continued. "We kept the form while forgetting the spirit." Ambassador Collins was given permission to speak. "Chancellor, if I might ask, what happened to this mercy clause? Why was it abandoned?" "It was never officially removed," replied the archivist, a Teskelian with flowing data tendrils. "Rather, it fell out of use after the Third Galactic Expansion. As the Council became more formal, the exceptions were practiced less often until they were eventually forgotten completely. The meaning settled over the Assembly like a wave. A tradition meant to include kindness had hardened into rigid formality, losing its deeper purpose. "Lance Sergeant Miller," the Chancellor addressed him directly, "it seems that rather than breaking our oldest tradition, you accidentally restored it to its original meaning." Miller wasn't sure how to respond. This was nothing like the punishment he had expected. The Chancellor continued. "After careful discussion, the Council has decided that this forgotten clause should be officially restored to Royal Guard protocol. The Mercy Clause was included by our founders for good reason, to ensure that in our quest for order and ceremony, we never lose sight of compassion." More murmurs filled the chamber, but Miller noticed they sounded approving rather than angry. "Furthermore," said the Chancellor, "as the one who brought this ancient wisdom back to our attention, Lance Sergeant Miller will help develop guidance on how this clause should be properly used in modern times." Miller finally found his voice. I am honored, Chancellor, but I'm not sure I understand. I was prepared for punishment, not this. The guardmaster stepped forward. There is no punishment for following the true spirit of the Royal Guard, Lance Sergeant, though none of us knew it until now. Lily, who had been listening carefully despite not understanding all the formal talk, suddenly spoke up. Does this mean he's not in trouble because of me? Her clear child's voice carried through the chamber, causing several delegates to smile despite the formal setting. The Chancellor turned to her with surprising gentleness. Young human, your sergeant is not in trouble. In fact, you have both helped us remember something important that we had forgotten. The ancient being's voice softened. Sometimes it takes new eyes to see old truths. Lily beamed with relief and happiness. Ambassador Collins looked proudly at his daughter, then back to the council. Chancellor, members of the council, I am moved by your wisdom in this matter. Many governing bodies would simply enforce the rules as they have been practiced. It takes true wisdom to look deeper into why those rules existed in the first place. Chancellor nodded. Perhaps this is why the galaxy benefits from the addition of younger species like humanity to the council. You help us see ourselves clearly. As the formal session ended, delegates approached Miller with curiosity and, to his surprise, respect. Many wanted to know more about the human military traditions that honored children and those with physical challenges. Lily wheeled over to where Miller stood, with her father following close behind. I'm glad you're not in trouble, she said simply. Miller smiled, now free to respond naturally. Thank you, Miss Collins. It seems your salute has changed things for the better. Does this mean guards can talk to people now? She asked. Not exactly, Miller explained, kneeling to meet her at eye level. But it means we can sometimes show a moment of kindness when it truly matters. That's what the first guards believed thousands of years ago, and now we remember it again. Ambassador Collins placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. You've made quite an impression on your first trip to the council, Lily. Indeed she has, said the guardmaster, approaching them. In fact, the council has a special request, if you are willing to hear it. Lily looked up with wide, curious eyes. What kind of request? The formal reinstatement of the Mercy Clause requires a ceremonial acknowledgement, explained the guardmaster. The council would be honored if you would participate in this ceremony, as the one who helped us rediscover this important tradition. Lily's face lit up with excitement. Really? Me? The guardmaster's skin glowed with warm colors. Yes. Sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest changes. 2 days passed as the council prepared for the special ceremony. During this time, Lance Sergeant Miller was relieved of his normal guard duties and instead worked with the archivists to study the original Mercy Clause in detail. The more he learned about it, the more meaningful his accidental action seemed. On the morning of the ceremony, Lily Collins sat in her quarters as 2 alien attendants helped her prepare. They had brought her a special formal outfit in the council's traditional colors of silver and blue, sized perfectly for her small frame. You look beautiful, sweetheart, Ambassador Collins said as he entered the room. He was wearing his most formal diplomatic attire. Lily spun her wheelchair in a circle, making the silver accents on her dress shimmer. Do you think many people will be watching, Daddy? Quite a few, her father said with a smile. The Chancellor told me that all council worlds will be broadcasting the ceremony. It's a historic occasion. Lily's eyes widened. All of them? That's billions of people and aliens. Yes, but don't worry about that, just be yourself, her father reassured her. You've already made a big difference just by being you. Across the council complex, Lance Sergeant Miller was receiving his new ceremonial armor. It looked much like his regular guard armor, but with one important addition, a small silver star emblem on the shoulder, the newly created symbol of the Mercy Clause. This star represents the light of compassion within duty, explained the guardmaster as he personally attached the emblem. It will be worn by all royal guards from this day forward. Miller nodded solemnly. I understand the honor, sir, and the responsibility. You should, the guardmaster replied, his skin glowing with calming blue patterns. After today's ceremony, You will help train all guards across the 17 worlds in how to properly honor the Mercy Clause. The Council believes that the Tau, human who rediscovered it, should help shape how it is used going forward. At the appointed hour, the Grand Plaza of Nexus Prime filled with representatives from all member species. In the center stood a raised platform where Lily waited in her wheelchair, looking small but proud in her ceremonial outfit. Ambassador Collins stood nearby, along with the Council's highest officials. The three suns of Nexus Prime shone brightly, overhead, making the crystal buildings around the plaza sparkle with rainbow light. A hush fell over the crowd as the Royal Guard procession entered the plaza. At the front walked Lance Sergeant Miller in his new armor with the Silver Star. Behind him marched 17 guards, one from each council species, from the tall, tree-like arboreals to the small, furry Mendans, all united by their matching ceremonial armor and purposeful stride. High Chancellor Vorn stepped forward to address the gathered crowds and the billions watching throughout council space. Today marks not an addition to our traditions, but a remembering. The Chancellor's voice carried clearly across the plaza. 6,000 years ago, when the first Royal Guard was formed, our ancestors knew something that we had forgotten. That true strength includes kindness, and true duty includes seeing those who need acknowledgement. The Chancellor gestured toward the ancient charter, displayed on a floating platform for all to see. The Mercy Clause section glowed with soft light. The Royal Guard was created to protect not just our physical safety, but the values we believe. And somewhere across the millennia, we kept the form of this tradition but lost sight of its heart. Lily listened carefully, understanding the general meaning, if not every word. She occasionally glanced at her father, who gave her encouraging smiles. It took the simple gesture of a child, continued the Chancellor, and the instinctive response of a guard from our newest member species, to remind us of what the founders knew, that compassion and duty are not separate things. At a signal from the guardmaster, the procession moved forward. The 17 guards arranged themselves in a perfect semicircle behind the platform. Lance Sergeant Miller approached Lily's wheelchair and, following the newly rediscovered protocol, knelt down to bring himself to eye level with her. Lily Collins of Earth, he said formally, his voice carried by the plaza's sound system. On behalf of the Royal Guard of the Galactic Council, I present to you the first official acknowledgement under the restored Mercy Clause. He removed from his armor a small replica of his Silver Star emblem and carefully pinned it to Lily's ceremonial dress. This star represents the light of compassion that shines even in the most formal of traditions, he explained to her. Thank you for helping us remember this light. Lily, who had been instructed in her part of the ceremony, raised her small hand in a perfect salute, just as she had done days earlier. This time, not only did Miller return it, but behind him, in perfect unison, all 17 Royal Guards, representatives of species as diverse as the crystalline Phalosians, the insect-like Veth, and the gaseous Andromedi, raised their various limbs in the first ceremonial group acknowledgement in 5,000 years. Throughout Council space, the impact was immediate and profound. Messages flooded the official communication channels as citizens shared their reactions. Perhaps there is wisdom in these humans after all. My child with movement challenges asks to visit the Royal Guard now. I never understood why guards couldn't acknowledge suffering. Now I know they always were meant to. As the formal part of the ceremony concluded, Lily beamed with happiness. She touched the Silver Star pinned to her dress with wonder. Does this mean I'm part of the Royal Guard now? She asked Miller quietly. He smiled. In a way, you're something even more important. You're the reason we remember why we guard in the first place. Ambassador Collins approached, his eyes showing pride in his daughter. How do you feel, Lily? Special, she replied simply. And happy that I helped fix something, even though I didn't mean to. Sometimes the best changes happen that way, her father said. Not from big plans, but from small, true moments. The guardmaster approached them, his skin glowing with colors of formal respect. Ambassador Collins, the council would like to speak with you privately. They have a proposal regarding your daughter's role in helping implement the renewed clause across council space. As Collins nodded and prepared to follow the guardmaster, Lily looked up at Miller. "Will I see you again before we go back to Earth?" "Actually," Miller said with a smile, "I believe you'll be seeing quite a bit more of me and the other guards. If what I've heard is correct, the Council has some important plans that include you." Lily's eyes widened with excitement as she wondered what new adventures might be coming next in her unexpected journey into galactic history. Around them, the crowds in the plaza began to disperse, but many stopped to look at the little human girl with the silver star on her dress, the girl who had, with one simple gesture, changed a tradition older than human civilization itself. 1 month after the ceremony, Lily Collins sat in a special classroom within the Royal Guard Training Academy on Nexus Prime. Around her, 20 young cadets from different species listened carefully as she explained her experience. "I just wanted to say hello to the guard," Lily told them in her clear, simple voice. "I didn't know about the old rules. I just did what felt right." The alien cadets watched her with various expressions of interest. Some had eyes on stalks, others had compound eyes like insects, and a few had no visible eyes at all, but sensed the world in other ways. Despite their differences, they all shared the same silver star emblem on their training uniforms. At the back of the room, Lance Sergeant Miller and Ambassador Collins watched with pride. What had begun as a simple gesture had transformed into something neither of them could have imagined. After the ceremony, the Council had made an unprecedented request. They asked if Lily would stay on Nexus Prime for 6 months as a special advisor to the Royal Guard. Her job would be to help the guards understand the human perspective on compassion within duty. Ambassador Collins had been reassigned temporarily to make this possible, and Lily's education continued through virtual classes with her Earth school. "She's a natural teacher," Miller said quietly to Collins, as Lily answered questions from the cadets. Collins nodded. "She always has been, but I never expected her to be teaching alien guards before her 9th birthday." A young Philosian cadet raised a crystal appendage. "But how do we know when to use the mercy clause? What if we make a mistake?" Lily thought for a moment. "My dad says that's why it's called judgment. You have to think about each situation. But the main thing is to ask yourself, will this small kindness hurt your bigger duty or help it?" The guardmaster, who had entered silently during the discussion, nodded with approval. His skin glowed with patterns of respect and satisfaction. "Well said, young Collins," the guardmaster commented. "That is precisely the wisdom we are trying to teach. The mercy clause is not an excuse to ignore duty, but a reminder of why the duty matters in the first place." After the class ended, Lily joined her father and Miller for lunch in the Academy's grand dining hall. This had become their routine over the past month. Around them, guards and officials from all 17 species ate their various foods, many stopping by to greet Lily, who had become something of a celebrity. "The council meeting went well this morning," Collins told his daughter. "They've approved the new training program. All Royal Guards will now receive specific instruction on the Mercy Clause as part of their basic training." Lily smiled as she ate her meal. "That's good. Have they decided about the other planets yet?" Miller nodded. "Yes, the program will be implemented on all 17 Council worlds within the year. Each planetary guard will adapt it to their own culture, but the core principle will remain the same." "And you'll be in charge of it?" Lily asked him. "Deputy Director of Implementation," Miller confirmed. "Once your advisory period is complete, I'll be traveling to each world to help establish their programs." Ambassador Collins looked thoughtfully at his daughter. "Which reminds me, Lily, the Council asked today about extending your stay. They've found your perspective valuable and wonder if you might consider staying for a full year instead of 6 months. Lily's eyes widened. "A whole year on Nexus Prime? What about my friends back home?" "You'd visit Earth during holiday periods," her father explained, "and we could arrange for some of your friends to visit here. The Council seems willing to make whatever arrangements would help." Lily thought about this as she finished her lunch. Finally, she asked, "Would we still get to go to the other Council worlds sometimes?" Miller smiled. "Actually, part of the new plan includes ceremonial visits to each world as they implement their version of the Mercy Clause. You would be an honored guest at each ceremony." "Then I want to stay," Lily decided. This is important work. Her father looked at her with a mixture of pride and wonder. Sometimes he forgot how grown-up his daughter could be, despite her young age and physical challenges. Later that day, as the three sons of Nexus Prime began their slow descent toward the horizon, Lily sat in the special observation dome that had been modified to accommodate her wheelchair. This had become her favorite place to think and watch the beautiful alien sunset. Miller found her there, gazing out at the colorful sky. "May I join you, Miss Collins?" he asked formally. Lily grinned. "You don't have to be so proper when we're not in official meetings, Kevin." He laughed and sat in the chair beside her wheelchair. Force of habit from guard training. It's hard to turn off. They watched the sun setting in comfortable silence for a while. "I received a message from my niece on Earth today," Miller said eventually. "She saw the broadcast of you teaching the cadets. She uses a mobility chair too, and she told me you're her hero now." Lily looked surprised. "Me? But I didn't do anything special." "Sometimes the most special things don't feel special to the person doing them," Miller replied. "They just feel right." He pointed to the silver star on his uniform, matching the one Lily still wore on her everyday clothes. "Do you know what they're calling this now in the public news, the Lily Star?" She blushed. "That's silly." "I don't think so," Miller said seriously. "Names are important. They carry meaning. And now, across 17 worlds, when guards look at this star, they'll remember that duty without kindness is empty." As the last sun dipped below the horizon, casting the crystal city in a warm purple glow, Lily thought about how much had changed because of one small moment. "My teacher on Earth said that big changes often start with small actions," she said, thoughtfully. "I guess this proves she was right." Miller nodded. "The most important changes often begin that way." From the doorway, Ambassador Collins watched his daughter and the guard talking. A message signal flashed on his communication device. Another council request for Lily to address a diplomatic gathering. Her simple wisdom and direct way of speaking had become surprisingly valuable in the often complicated world of galactic politics. Who would have thought, he mused, that his daughter's wheelchair and her natural friendliness would make her a perfect bridge between species? Sometimes the very things that seemed like limitations could become unexpected strengths. As evening fell fully on Nexus Prime, lights began to shimmer across the city. Among them, the Royal Guard headquarters glowed with a special silver blue light, the new ceremonial color chosen to honor the restored Mercy Clause. And in guard stations across 17 worlds for the first time in 5,000 years, the changing of the guard now included a new element, a moment when each guard touched the silver star on their uniform and remembered that even the most perfect duty made room for compassion. All because a little girl in a wheelchair had offered a salute, and a guard had chosen to return it.